everyone! You might notice that I don't have any Pokemon cards in front of me right now. And that's because I'm finally doing a crocheting tutorial. Now, I'm still trying to get the yarn together to make one of the stuffed Pokemon that I want to do, and that I finally found a pattern for. But in the meantime, I thought I'd at least give you some easy lessons on the different stitches involved and an easy project. Though it might still take a while to make. I mean, this one took me a week to make. And I do have a finished example to show you guys, so you at least have something to work on. Anyway, what do I have that we can use? And what are we going to need? You'll need 2 skeins of yarn, 7 ounces each, a size H or 5mm thick crochet hook, and a tapestry sewing needle. Okay, first step I'll show you is making a slip knot. Probably one of the easiest things, yet also one of the most important, because if you do this right, you'll be able to adjust the size of the loop throughout your entire project. This helps if you find out that the hook you're using doesn't give you the size that the pattern requires. And believe me, that happens a lot. Anyway, first you need a string of yarn and your crochet hook. Well, crochet hook's only semi-important. But first, you need to make the loop, like I said. So, this is going to be the end that you leave out. Twist it into a little ring, like so, or a loop. Then pull the end that's leaning back into your skein of yarn. And either pull it through with your fingers, or more appropriately, with the crochet hook. Then pull both sides so that you have a loop. And you can double check by seeing if what's going to be your short end tightens the little knot, and if your loop gets smaller when you pull on the long end. Or if you pull on the actual hook on the loop, will it get bigger and this pull through the actual knot. And now we'll move on to the next thing you need to know for any project, the chain stitch. Now, the chain stitch is pretty simple. First, making sure your loop is of good size. You wrap the yarn around the hook, or yarn over, as it'll stay in any pattern that you happen to read. And then, using the tip of the hook, pull the hook through the loop that's already on here. And with the hook, pull that yarn through. This might take a few tries to get it right, and I also recommend using a bigger hook if you're first trying out the stitches. So we'll make this a few times, yarn over, and pull it through the loop already on the hook. Good. It's simple practice and an easy enough thing to figure out. Oh, and FYI with the yarn, most skeins that you'll get will have it looped around like this, but also through the center. Sometimes though, the end of the yarn in the center is hard to get to, so it might be easiest when you're just starting out to go around from the outside. Next thing you need to know is the slip knot. Well, I mean not the slip knot, the slip stitch. Yeah, I get tongue-tied on those. And this is necessary for different things you might want to try, like joining 2 pieces of a project together, or in this case, joining your chain stitches into a ring. Now for this, first insert your hook into one of your chain stitches, or into any stitch depending on what you see in the pattern. Then wrap the yarn around the hook like you did in the chain stitch. Pull that through not only the chain stitch, but the loop you already have on the hook. See? I'll show you again just to make sure you see it. So, you got a loop on the hook, put the hook through the chain stitch, yarn over, then pull that yarn through with the hook through the chain stitch and the loop, leaving only a single loop on. This is, like I said, important for joining stuff into a ring or for joining two pieces of a project together. I'm going to undo this really quick, and that's one of the good things about crocheting is that you can undo the stitches if you mess up. As long as you don't accidentally cut off the yarn before you're done. I've done that more times than I can count. And for the next part, I'll show you the single crochet. Now for this, you just need to put the hook underneath these. Maybe it'll be easier if you can see them close. The two loops at the top of your chain stitch, or any stitch actually. Now, once you have it through, some patterns might have you put it through the middle of it, or underneath the little hump that your stitches make right there at the bottom. Right away, once you have it through, yarn over, just like you've been doing, and pull it through the stitch so you have two loops on the hook, like so. Then next, yarn over again, and pull it through your two loops so you have just a single loop left. And that will give you your single crochet. I'll show you again. Put it through your chain stitch or whatever stitches on the previous row. Yarn over, pull the yarn through, yarn again, and pull it through the two loops. Pretty simple, huh? And these are going to be the major stitches you need for your first crochet project. And that first project is a scarf. I know, not that exciting, but it's also one of the first and easiest things to make. It can also be the longest depending on how long you're going to make the scarf. And this pattern is supplied by Karen Yarn. They are the ones that made this particular skein that I'm using. And for this particular project that they recommend 2 skeins of their Karen Cakes yarn, or about 14 ounces. If you don't want to make it as long as they recommend it though, which is 70 inches long, and that's about as, well, it's taller than I am, so you might not want that much. I'd recommend though at least keeping 1 7-ounce skein on hand for it, and just enough extra yarn for making some tassels or fringes on the end. Now, like I said, I'll show you how we get started and also the finished product so you have an idea of what to look for. Now, first, start off by making 36 chain stitches. I'm going to be speeding up this part so you can actually see when you need to go on to the next part of the stitch. And make sure to count your stitches at the end of each row because it's pretty easy to mess up sometimes, especially when you're just starting out. And 36. Okay. For for the next part, insert your hook into the second chain down on your little row and make a single crochet. Then make a chain stitch. Get one chain stitch on your row and then make another single crochet in the next chain stitch. And then you'll repeat this until you get to the end. Okay, we're down to the last two, and as you'll notice, this row will end with a single crochet, just like we started with. And that's something you're going to want to remember for this, to make sure that each end ends with the same number of the stitch that you started with. In this case, the 2 single crochet stitches at the end. Now, chain 1 and turn the row around so that the start of the next row is right here. Using this chain stitch to give you some height and to help it stay high, because sometimes it looks weird if you don't do that. Single crochet again in the first stitch. Then, in the chain stitch that comes next, insert your hook and single crochet just like your previous stitch. Now, chain stitch and skip your single crochet on the previous row. Insert the hook into the next chain stitch and make the single crochet again. Repeat this until you get to the last 2 stitches at the end of the row. Okay, technically at the last 3 stitches, but for this, you need to skip the 1 single crochet before the last 2 and insert your hook into the remaining chain stitch, single crochet, and then single crochet again into the last stitch. Then once again, make a chain stitch to give you height and turn the project around in the other direction. Then, for the 3rd row, insert the hook into the chain stitch that you just made. I mean, not the chain stitch, the single crochet. Yarn over, bring up the loop, and single crochet just like last time. But this time, the next stitch is a chain stitch. And then skip the single crochet that you made and insert into the chain stitch to make another single crochet. And you'll repeat this all the way back to the end of the row again. And you'll be repeating this until your project is the desired length. The pattern recommends 70 inches, which is like 6 feet. So, like I said, just make it as long as you want. I'll say at least like 48 inches though, or about 4 feet to make it so it wraps around your neck properly. There is one more thing I need to show you guys before this wraps up, and I can only show that once I get to the end. Mostly because it'll be easier for you to understand. Because sometimes you're not going to have enough yarn to finish your project, or rather, your skein's going to run out in the middle of the project. Sometimes you're lucky and it'll be at the end of the row. Other times, however, it won't be. Let's just start with what it would look like if it were in the middle. Now, hopefully you'll have enough to at least get half the stitch done. So it looks like this, whether at the end of the row or at the beginning. When that happens, you take another strand from the skein, a new skein of yarn, yarn it, wrap it over like so, making sure to leave it on the back side of your project. Then pull that strand of yarn through, making sure to pull on both the old yarn thread and the new one so it fits. Then continue on as you did before. I don't recommend doing it when you're trying to chain stitch though, because it's a little weird, as you can see right here. You can do this, like I said, in the middle of your project, or more preferably at the end. I prefer at the end because that way you can clearly see the difference in your project, or in cases with later projects that require you to change colors at the end of each row to keep the effect that you're looking for. Okay. And as I originally said, you will repeat this row and the previous one until your project is the required length, and this is how big the finished product is, as you can see. Maybe not see. Yeah, pretty big. And like I said, once you're finished getting the length, you can add a fringe to your scarf, which is basically just, if I'll undo the original color change, as they call it in most patterns. You can make a fringe by measuring out the yarn to a certain length. This pattern requires that you measure it out to 18 inches, but that's kind of long, so I think you should try for either 6 or 10 inches long. Anyway, once you've measured that out, cut the yarn, and if you don't want to keep measuring it, keep that first strand of yarn and use it as a makeshift ruler. And then again, just cut and making sure to keep equal distance along the end of your project. We'll use my finished one as a sort of demonstration piece. basically emails. Basically. Put the hook into either the bottom loop of your chain stitch, if we're working on the bottom of your piece, or underneath the 2 top loops if it's the last row that you just finished. Then, folding your 2 or more strands in half over the hook, pull them through like so. Then, just if you were doing a single crochet, yarn over the now doubled amount of strands and pull through. Then just tighten, and to make it look even, usually you just cut off the tips so that they're both, no, not both. So all of the strands are now equal length. Somehow though, I managed to get it just right, so we don't have to do that. But you will want to pull on each of those strands just to make sure it stays. And that is how you make a fringe. Well, if you guys like this project, make sure to leave a like. If you want to see more tutorials like this, especially. And if you're new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. I also do Pokemon card openings, sometimes Yu-Gi-Oh!, as well as retro Pokemon Let's Plays. And I'm your host, Christina, signing off and wishing you good luck.